gather every Sunday, but especially this Sunday, as we remember and honor those family members, church members, and friends who we've lost this year. More than anything else, and more than at any other time, we need one another right now. Each of us grieves, and when we grieve together, the healing begins. And so, as we remember and honor our loved ones today, we celebrate the gift of community, where we can be ourselves, where we can ask for what we need, where we can expect and count on the encouragement and the support of one another. In my message last Sunday, as I was reflecting on some of the learnings from my interfaith experiences, I reflected on the gift of community. And I said then, and I'll say again today, that without fail, when I've asked members of my congregations over the years why being part of the church is so important to them, they may talk about the important social justice work their church does in the community. They almost always talk about how important the music is to them in the service. They may even say that they value sermons occasionally, but they will always name community as the thing they value the most. Being part of an intentional, supportive community of faith with people who share their values and their goals. To be part of a faith community is a tremendous privilege. And I'm sure that we all have plenty of stories we could share, and maybe we will, of times when being part of a church community was profoundly life-changing. I have two such stories to share with you this morning. In December of 1992, I experienced at one and the same time the most challenging time in my 48 years of ministry, and also the most profound experience of Christian community in my ministry. I was working at that time in a team ministry at Arundel United Church in Mississauga. And after an extremely busy Advent and Christmas, my colleague, whose name was Lanny, and his wife Donna, were taking a much-deserved week of holidays in Mexico. Well, it was on the Sunday night news that we all first heard about a terrible bus crash in Mexico that had killed many people, including a United Church of Canada minister and his wife. Now, it wasn't until the next morning, the Monday morning, that we knew for sure that it was Lanny and Donna who had died that day. Now, this was in 1992, probably 93 at this point, early January. So it was long before we had email and other methods of communication such as that. But of course, even in that time, even in those days, word traveled quickly. And here's the really remarkable thing that I want to share with you this morning. At about 7 p.m. that evening, that Monday evening, people just started coming to the church. They just turned up. They came and they sat in the sanctuary where they prayed and cried, but mostly sat in stunned silence because they didn't know what else to do, and they didn't know where else to go. And they needed to be together. And that happened every night of that week until Friday, when hundreds of people gathered in the sanctuary and in the church hall for this double funeral. I also had the good fortune to be part of another extraordinary experience of community, a much happier one this time. And this was in May of 2012. Dan will remember an intern at Bloor Street United Church whose name was Neil. Everybody loved Neil. Neil was a farm boy from Sussex, New Brunswick in the Maritimes, and his year in Toronto was literally a transformative year for him, because it was the year that he came out and became comfortable with his orientation as a young gay man. Now, Neil has been a minister for many years now in a rural United Church near Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. And in February of that year, 2012, I got one of those big fat envelopes in the mail that you just know is a wedding invitation. And it was. Neil had met Philip, who had grown up in that rural area in Nova Scotia, and they were being married in Neil's church in May. That was one of the happiest weddings I've ever attended. And trust me, I've been to a lot of weddings. The grooms were deliriously happy. Their families were happy. Their church was happy. The members of that little rural United Church pitched in and made all the food for the wedding, hosted the reception, sang in the choir, made toasts and speeches, and they were proud. They were proud of their minister. They were proud of their church. They were proud of themselves, as well they should have been. And they were proud to be a part of the United Church of Canada. Two examples of community at its best. In the former, people seeking comfort together in a time of pain and confusion and sadness and anger. In the latter, people coming together to celebrate with someone they loved. Of course, being in community is not always easy. It's not only gift, it can also be challenge. Paul, in his letter to the Ephesians, from which we heard this morning, offers advice on how to be in community in a way that is healthy and life-giving. With all humility and gentleness, he says, with patience, bear with one another in love, and make every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in peace. Now, that's all very lovely, of course, but at other times when Paul was in a really cranky mood, which he often was, and is putting out yet another fire of some kind in one of the early church communities that he established, his advice is much more forceful and direct. Let no gossip come from your mouth, he says, but only that which is useful for building up the community. Put away all bitterness and wrath and anger and wrangling and slander, together with all malice. So Paul's vision of community is challenging and hard. Nobody said it was going to be easy. But today is all about celebrating the community of Comer Avenue United Church and remembering and honoring those who have been part of this church community but are no longer with us, with all of the blessings and all of the challenges that go with that. Now, churches are different from one another, obviously. Some churches continually harp on the sinfulness and unworthiness of their members, threatening fire and brimstone if they don't toe the line. This, I am glad to say, is not what we believe. What we believe and teach is that God is love, that we are created in the image and likeness of God, and that everything that God creates is good. We believe that we are called to celebrate humanity in all of its wonder and diversity, that God's desire and intention for us is to live lives of abundance and wholeness, and that we are called to live in relationship and in community with God and with one another. And thanks be to God for that.